Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell sat down with Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan today to discuss the $95 billion foreign aid package that President Biden signed yesterday after months of debate among House Republicans. They also talked about the wave of pro-Palestinian protests on college campuses, along with the presence of anti-Semitic signs and statements mixed in with them. In recent days, hundreds of students and others have been arrested at colleges, including the University of Southern California, Columbia, and Yale. Here's some of what Senator McConnell had to say.
I want to start here at home with these protests that we have seen on college campuses throughout the U.S. in support of Palestinians in Gaza, but mixed in there some posters, some statements that are anti-Semitic. Speaker Johnson visited Columbia and told CBS we need to call in the National Guard and law enforcement to take control. Governor Abbott of Texas said all of the protesters belong in jail. There are protests in Texas. Do you agree with them?
Well, here's the way I look at it. The First Amendment is important, but it doesn't give you the ability to claim there's a fire going on in the theater because it threatens everyone else. What needs to happen, at least at the beginning, is these university presidents need to get control of the situation, allow free speech, and push back against anti-Semitism. I thought that was largely gone in this country, but we've seen a number of young people who are actually anti-Semitic. Why don't they all sit down and have a civil conversation rather than trying to dominate the talk? And I think the first line of defense is these university presidents.
So you wouldn't go to the National Guard at this point?
Let's see if these university presidents can get control of the situation. They ought to be able to do that. Civil discussion is what college education is supposed to be about. I'd be interested in hearing the anti-Semitic people explain the justification for that kind of talk.
CBS News Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent Margaret Brennan joins us now. Margaret, we heard that conversation that you had with McConnell, but what else did the Senate Minority Leader say to you?
Well, you know, Lana, you heard the Minority Leader draw a clear line between what he thought was something the president should deal with themselves and not make this a federal issue. One thing he did want to talk about as a federal national issue and emergency is the U.S. interests in the war in Ukraine. I spoke to him shortly after he had hung up the phone with Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. And McConnell was both proud of what he had done, but also apologetic. He told me he actually apologized to Zelensky for how long it took for the United States Congress to approve the $61 billion that was a part of that national security package that goes towards Ukraine. And he said it was within his own party that it was the problem. He said it took 4 months in the Senate of squabbling over a border deal package. And ultimately, Donald Trump, he refers to him not by name, but as the Republican nominee, he was not enthusiastic about it. As McConnell put it, that's what killed those prospects. Then he mentioned the infighting over in the House. But the long and short of it is he was taking some responsibility there and acknowledging when I rattled off to him what had happened on the battlefield in Ukraine during this period of time. The fact that the Supreme Allied Commander, General Cavoli, just testified to Congress that Russia has reconstituted its defense industrial base and reconstituted its army and now has reinforced the 20% of Ukraine Russian forces hold. And McConnell said, yes, we bear some responsibility for that. I thought that was significant. He also, though, was taking responsibility and credit, frankly, for changing Republican opinion in the Senate. He said to me, I think the best evidence of how we're doing in defeating isolationism within Republican Party is the difference between 22 and 32. That's him talking about the difference in the two Senate votes, that he was able to get more Republicans to sign on just within the past week. And he said he was very clear that this is because of the dangerous moment we are in that he compared to World War II, in fact, called it more dangerous.
Very interesting, especially given the context that he does not plan to pursue leadership in the future. Margaret, thank you. You can also watch more of Margaret's interview with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell on Face the Nation this Sunday right here on CBS News 24/7.